Hey guys, so I wanted to cover some of the new weapon refinements. I know that every time IS releases new weapon refinements, they don't do a really good job of telling you what the refines are. They are releasing a new banner with some of these, so you have Ike, you have Zelgius, and you have Ryoma, as well as you have Hardin, but they don't really tell you. So unless you actually pull the unit, have the unit in hand, and are able to do the upgrade yourself, you can determine if it's worth it, which I think is kind of messed up because, you know, they really should explain it, especially if you're going to be spending orbs. So I'm going to explain it to you. So these are the heroes, and these are the 5 weapons that are going to get upgraded. So the first is Ragnell, and there's 2 Ragnells. One is Young Ike. So this is the main Ike here that's in the banner. You gotta know that because it's different from Legendary Ike, who's the Vanguard Legend. So with Ragnell, before it was just a distant counter weapon, meaning that he can counterattack regardless of being hit by a ranged attack. Now, if you upgrade it with your points, it actually gains an additional effect, and we can discuss whether or not this is actually a good change or a bad change. Now, enables counter regardless of distance, so it keeps the distant counter, of course, accelerates special trigger at the start of combat. If Ike's HP is above 25%, it gives him plus 4 stats to everything besides HP. Now, this is important to note because Ike has always been kind of a very balanced unit, and what do I mean by that? So when I click into Ike, you're going to see kind of his distribution, and you can see here on average, this is without the weapon, so he's 35 on average if you get a neutral stat pool, which means that with his Ragnell, he gets up to 51 if my math is correct, and his defense is also pretty high, and his speed is pretty high. The one that you don't want is a boon in resist, because his resist is very low. His HP is very high as well, considering he has strong attack and defense and a pretty decent speed that you can go either way. You can add more stuff to it. But anyways, the plus 4 to each stat makes him a better overall unit. So you can build him kind of as a defense bonfire unit, which is a little harder to do, or you can build him plus attack. But regardless, the plus 4 to all stats is gonna benefit him as a whole. So the young Ike, the thing is, his total stats here, you can see it's 158, and that's kind of how they calculate balancing units now. I think 170 is kind of where they're at with the power creep. It's been 4 years, I think. And the plus 4 is just gonna help him overall. Now with Legendary Ike, it's kind of weird in the sense that for Legendary Ike, if you look at his stats distribution, it's more focused on the attack, and he actually has a higher defense as well, but lower speed. So young Ike is faster, but older Ike is more bulky. So if you want to focus on kind of attack, you would want the older Ike, but if you want more speed, the younger Ike is better. Okay. Now we're going to talk Alondite, and Alondite is owned by the Black Knight or Zelgius. The cool thing about it is the Black Knight is one of those Grail units that you can get Grails from Ether Raids and also pull him and really get a plus 10 merge if something you wish. And we're going to talk about that because Zelgius, I think, is the better unit. The Black Knight is a lot easier to gain access to. So he has a very similar thing because Alondite and Ragnell, they're kind of brother swords in the game. So he also gets plus 4. But let me tell you, this is a lot more significant on the Black Knight because the Black Knight is an armored unit, which means by default his stats distribution are higher. So you can see it's 169. It's actually really, really good. And at top here, you can see he beats Ike out in everything, and you get like a whole bunch more HP. The thing here is you don't want to focus on speed, even though speed is actually pretty good. It's better than the Ikes, so it doesn't matter. But the Black Knight has just a higher stat distribution all. Even with 650 units currently, you can see his HP is ranked at 20. And this being a distant counter unit, a really famous thing, kind of a really common thing I should say to run is Vanguard on the B skill, so that if you're below 50% HP, which is pretty high, let's say you just get the neutral one, I mean you will get the neutral one for pulling the Grail unit, half of that is 24. So if he's 24 HP or below, you get Vanguard, he's going to hit first, and he's going to get hit hard. And the reason is because of Black Luna. Black Luna is so good. What it does, it hits for 80%. It ignores 80% of the defense there. So that's crazy, guys. A unit that can ignore 80%, getting 4 additional stats just on his weapon alone. And if you're between that 25%, if you're above 25%, but less than 50, and you have Vanguard on, it's gonna chunk them. Some people aren't going to expect that. Alright, so let's talk about Raijinto. So this is Ryoma's weapon, and Ryoma's weapon is in desperate need of a rework because it's here on Ryoma, but also Legendary Ryoma has it as well. Enable counters regardless of distance. Okay, so that's just distant counter. If unit initiate combats, or if unit is in 2 spaces of an ally, you get +4 to every stat. And neutralizes effects that guarantee follow-up and effects that prevent follow-up. So he can follow up, Ryoma can follow up, but the other unit can't follow up. So with Ryoma, there's 2 variations. There's kind of the ground version, so this is kind of like base Ike as well, with the lower total stats. But you can see that his speed is actually pretty high. Now, with the high speed, he actually has decent defense and resist. It's nowhere above 30, so nowhere above Ike, but it's decent, right? So that's okay. But where it's gonna matter is in Legendary Ryoma. And Legendary Ryoma, in my opinion, was kind of a weak unit. At that time, we didn't have many red flyers, so it was good then, but now it's just eh. But here, under Legendary Ryoma, this is where it's going to matter. So that when unit initiate attack things, that's going to matter here because he has really, really high base speed. And you can run Phantom Speed, you can run Swift Sparrow, whatever, and he can most likely double, and the enemy can't double. So that neutralization is good. It also works if he's in 2 spaces of an ally unit, which is great. Okay, so if I were to run the Raijinto upgrade, it would be on Legendary Ryoma. See, he has more stats than regular Ryoma, and the high speed is something you're going to need because his attack compared to other units is just so-so, but his speed is where he shines, right? So he's ranked 59th out of 650 here. Definitely worth it, and it synergizes well with Raijinto's weapon enhancement. Okay. Now we're going to talk Siegfried. Now I feel bad for Xander in this game. Not only does he have kind of a new voice actor, who in the original Ryoma voice is kind of eh, but he gets really, really shafted. But let's talk about that. So Siegfried, he retains the distant counter at the start of combat if foe is greater than 75%. They get negative attack and negative defense during combat, and foe cannot make follow-up attack. So this is not the greatest weapon upgrade, honestly, guys, and I feel like Xander keeps being shafted, and I'm going to tell you why. Because Xander is a Grail unit, and he's one of the OG units. He's only 154. The only thing he's ranked high in is defense, as you can see here, and his defense can get pretty high. Except, he sucks at everything else. His speed is lower than the Black Knight's speed. His attack is just okay. And the only thing that makes it is his defense. His resist, just forget about it. If you're gonna get hit by magic, you might as well just cross Xander off your party pool. But defense is where it's at, because if you're able to run a defense build, let's say a bonfire build that does I believe it's like 50 or 80% of your defense. I think it's 50. It's gonna be worth it. So if the enemy is greater than 75%, so that's another very, very difficult position. So if you know they're going to attack you and it's a physical attack and they're above 75%, and this kind of danger territory because a lot of other units have skills that activate above 75%, or if their HP is at 100, so you gotta be careful. They're gonna get the negative attack and defense. But like I said, for those units where there's bonus stats at 100%, it's not gonna help Xander here. So I don't think this is strong enough for him to be back in the meta. I don't think his stats are strong enough. I feel like of the upgrades they give, this is kind of the worst one. So stay away from Xander. There's a lot more worthy red units right now, including Selef, and we recently got Sigen. So just stay away from Xander. I feel really bad. There's other versions of Xanders you can use. Maybe the Dancer version will give you extra turns. But base Xander, Okay, let's talk Gradavis. So Gradavis here, it keeps the distant counter if foe initiates combat or is at 50%, grants the if foe initiates combat or if foe's HP is at 100 when you're attacking, you get +4 to every stat. Also, if the unit deals damage to foe during combat, restores 7 HP. So this is actually a very, very strong skill. Now there's 2 heroes that can use this. One is Camus, and if you play Shadow of Valencia, Zeke. He's the same character. And the other is Hardin. And we're going to take a look at them both because the approach is very, very different. For Camus, you can see here his stat distribution is pretty sucky. It's just like 1 more than Free Xander, right? But it's a more balanced distribution. You get that negative hit on the resist, but it's a balanced distribution. What that means is you have a lot of choices. So they're telling you right here, you have a lot of choices on how you want to build him. Do you want to build him as a defensive unit with Vantage? Or do you want to build him as a speed unit? You can make it work. It's going to require some Seals and Swift Sparrow and Phantom Speed. All of that. It can work, but the thing is you can't. This is the worst of the 2. I think where it's going to benefit is Fallen Hardin, because Hardin has over 175. So we talked about 170 kind of being where units should be to be competitive. But 175, and he excels at defense. So, and as a bonus, he's not that bad at resistance. You can see this is within top 25%. If I do my math correctly, yeah, I think it's top 25% here. So you can build him either as a defensive unit or resist. Speed is okay. It's enough where you may get doubled, but his attack far makes up for it, right? And what you want to do is you want to build a defensive unit either on defense or resistance. Now, you might want to build resistance because people aren't going to expect it when they're attacking you, especially with magic. But basically, this is where I would run my Vanguard setup. And you can actually run some HP enhancing moves as well. If you don't want to run, let's say you don't want to run Vanguard, you can run Rebirth. Or Renewal is I think what the skill's called, and he gains HP. But basically, if he deals damage to the foe, he's going to gain 7 HP afterwards. So there's a lot of skills, like I said, that benefit when you're above 75% or when you're at 100. In fact, one of them is very famous, kind of the Fury Vanguard combo. So if you run Fury 4, you get more stats. You get the stats from his weapon by default if the foe's HP is at 100 or if the foe initiates attack. And after that, you'll gain that HP that you lost during the Fury from his weapon. So that's like if you want a stat monster that just outstats anyone and can tank anyone and deal pretty good damage back, that Fury Vanguard combo on Hardin will be pretty good choice. Alright guys, so hopefully that gives you some ideas on how to build these units, and you let me know if these upgrades are worth it or if you're going to be using any of these for yourself. Thanks, I'll catch you on the next one. Bye!